Hey, welcome to the show. This is Stories with Brisco and Bradshaw. That would be WWE Hall of Famer Mr. Brisco, and I would be Bradshaw. And they ask about what do you miss most in the wrestling business? Everybody will tell you the car rides. Some of the greatest times that we had was riding between towns with great friends. And I had two of the best friends that any human being could ever have. That was Teddy Long and Ron Simmons. And Charles, the Godfather Wright, ended up joining us most of the time. But Teddy's a good friend. He's a good man. He's joining us now. Teddy, thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure and an honor it is to be with you. And, finally, now I have got the opportunity and the chance to try and collect the rest of my money that has been owed to me by you and Ron Simmons for the last 15 years. So I'm glad to be on here. I can get my money now.
Mr. Well, I wouldn't guarantee that there, player, because I tell you, I've been working with John now for like 5-6 months on this, and this is strictly for entertainment purposes only. The financial gains probably is over there on the other side of the screen there with Layfield, because he's a financial genius, and I'm sure during those road trips and everything, you had exactly down to the 10th of a penny what you owed him for his company, right?
Well, yes, I got it down, and I come to find out, I don't understand why I haven't got paid. And somebody told me, said, well, it may be just one word with Bradshaw. The reason he probably hadn't paid you because it's privilege.
Yeah, privilege. That's why every other black guy in the car paid their tolls except for you. Look, Mr. Brisco, you gotta understand, we would drive to a toll booth, and all of a sudden Teddy Long would turn into Galileo. He'd start looking at the stars. He'd go to sleep. He'd go, I got it, guys. And he'd go, and he waits so long. There's cars behind us. They're honking their horn. And finally, we'd pay the toll. Teddy never paid a toll in about 10 years.
Well, y'all wouldn't give me time. I couldn't find my wallet. Y'all kept rushing me through the toll. I was looking for my wallet, but y'all didn't have time. No, we ain't got time to wait on you to find it. I'm under the influence and my memory's bad. So I had to try to look for my wallet.
In that car, you're under the influence. I find that hard to believe.
Well, it's true.
I want to tell you something. Ron Simmons and I almost had to check into a secondhand smoke clinic because we rode with Teddy Long and Charles Wright so long.
Well, the only thing it did for you, John Blayfield, is made you hungry. That's all we had to keep pulling over, getting you food.
Jerry, we would show up at a Bob Evans. Those guys would go in there and get chicken breasts and baked potatoes. Me and Ron would get pies and cakes. We're just riding in the car with Teddy and Godfather.
Teddy, could that guy eat on the road or what, man? Does he eat on the road heavier? I mean,
well, no, he's done okay. He'd eat a little bit bad, but he tried to keep on his diet and keep his weight down. So he was pretty good about eating. But sometimes, we all ate bad. Sometimes when you get the munchies, you got to just eat what's there.
Keep his weight down. I went back and I looked at some of those that John Layfield there was no keeping the weight down, maybe down below his belt line on his ass. That's where he kept it. But that, he was a big guy there. But I can imagine about an hour and a half into one of those trips that the first Bob Evans or the first 24-hour Stuckey's or Denny's that come up, that place was frequented. I bet you guys knew each stop along the highway.
Oh, well, everywhere we stopped, we had been there before. So every time we walked in, it was like at a Walmart. We had a greeter. Oh, you guys back again?
We stopped at some Walmart one time, and Charles Wright, Godfather, goes into the Walmart. He goes, I'll be right back. So some fan comes by, and he recognizes us in the car. And he says, hey, can I get an autograph? I said, of course you can get an autograph if you will go in and announce on the loudspeaker that the Godfather is in the store. And the guy goes, oh, I'll be happy to. He's in the store? I said, yeah. So he goes in and he announces on the loudspeaker, Godfather's in the store. And he is surrounded by 50 people. You can't figure out why.
Oh, it was a big rib. It was great. And that's one thing about Bradshaw. Anytime he could rib you, he'd rib you, brother, and you would never know when it's coming.
You'd never know.
Teddy, look, you told at the Hall of Fame that you passed the sobriety test in Louisville, Kentucky by that redneck cop that stopped us. Now you had nothing to drink, nothing to sniz, nothing. You was fine.
Nothing.
You failed the sobriety test because that cop was going to arrest us. Don't you even think about saying you passed it.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm dead sober. I have no alcohol in me whatsoever. Might have had something else, but I was not drunk. Now the police stops us, and the first thing Bradshaw says is, well, I'm the one drinking. And he looks over and he's got about 15 empty beer cans right in front of him that he's drank out. The way we got the beer, it was on a Sunday. So we go in this gas station to get gas, and the thing is locked. The case is locked. And so Bradshaw goes over to the girl. He says, hey, you want to make 50 bucks? She says, what? Well, open that case up right there and give us a case of beer. I'll pay for the beer and I'll give you 50 bucks. And that's how we end up getting a case of beer. He paid about $70 for a case of beer. And then when we get stopped, the police pulls me over and he tells me to get out and take a sobriety test, and I haven't drank anything. So he says, well, I smell alcohol. Well, the next thing I know, Ron Simmons is in the back seat. Next thing comes out of his mouth, oh, so we got a bloodhound now, okay? We got a bloodhound. Oh, I don't even look in the back seat because I don't even want the man to know I even heard that. So I just keep right on talking. He says, what did he say? I said, I have no idea, sir. I don't know what he said. So that pisses him off. So he pulls me out of the car and gives me a sobriety test. I'm sober, and then gives me a ticket for $250.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and I'm sure they shared it with you.
Well, you know, they were kind enough. They gave me $100 of it. So I ended up having to pay the $125. They just insisted not to do half. They just told me they was going to give me something.
Teddy wasn't speeding nothing. That cop saw some guys he thought were suspects in the car, and he stopped us. That was the only reason he stopped us. So
the guy wasn't far off either, John, when you said suspects.
So when I tell the cop, because I don't want to, I'm gonna take the fall for Ron. So I'm gonna say, hey, all this beer's mine. I'm the only one drinking. So Ron gets mad at me for wanting to take the fall for him. He rolls down the window and he goes, no. I'm drunk too. And that cop looked at that huge man in the back seat and pulled off his gun. He holstered his gun. I said, Ron, he's going to shoot you. Ron, he goes, roll up the window. Ron rolled up the window.
Like that window didn't stop that bullet.
Yeah. Got Teddy outside. So when Teddy's outside taking the sobriety test, we think he's failing. He's doing all this stuff. You can't do that stuff. 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was, late, whatever it was. Ron goes, I said, Ron, what are we going to do if they arrest Teddy? Ron says, last seen, large black and white male running into the woods. I said, we're not running anywhere.
Y'all wasn't able to run nowhere.
So we don't tell Teddy that we're going to help him pay for the ticket. We're supposed to go to, I forget where we're going. Teddy drives us to Lexington by mistake, but he misses a turn, and we forget, and we end up getting there at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. It was a nightmare.
Yeah, well, but we got there and we went straight to work.
Yes,
and that's just one story.
Well, yeah.
Hey, how about the time Jackie Moore drove you to Asheville, wherever it was, Kentucky, or wherever it was?
She drove me 200 miles out of the way. We was on our way to Richmond, Virginia, driving from Greensboro, North Carolina. Now, from Greensboro to Richmond is only maybe 150, at the most, easy. So I'm so tired, I'm just sleeping tired. So I said, Jackie Moore, I said, can you drive just a little bit? Just let me get just a little bit of sleep. She says, okay. So I get a little nap. Then the next thing I know, I wake up and I'm like, where we at? Are you not there? And next thing I find out, she has drove 200 miles out of the way. Now I'm pissed off now, so I got to get back behind the wheel. So I drive back. I get in Richmond, Virginia at 7 a.m. in the morning, which would have only took about an hour and a half drive. And the first people I see when I drive up is Bradshaw and Ron. I just dropped my head. I said, here it comes.
We thought maybe he had gotten up early and gone to the gym. And because me and Ron were up, we were about to go to the gym, and we said, Teddy, you go to the gym already? He goes, I'm just getting in. Oh my God. I slept all night. They had driven all night.
Yeah, y'all night. She done went 200 miles out the way.
That's hard to do, drive through Richmond, Virginia, up in that part of the country up there to Mississippi like that. But I've got experience doing the same thing with my brother and I and Roddy Piper. I mean, we missed a few exit turns ourselves, So I feel you, brother. I feel where you're coming from, and then to run into those two demons that you ran into, Bradshaw and Layfield, when you're tired, you don't want any bullshit, you don't want any of that stuff, and you know that you're going to get it.
Soon as I saw them, I dropped my head. I'm like, oh no, here it comes.
One time, Jerry, we're in a three-team tag match or something. It was the Hardys and Edge and Christian. They're new with the company. They just came in. They want to do everything in the world. Me and Ron, it's a 1:00 show. We hadn't been to bed very long. So I'm sitting there talking to Ron in the corner, and I'd forgotten completely about the match. So Teddy comes over to us. He's a referee. He goes, at any point, are you two going to join this match? Ron goes, he looks
and
like
they looked right at me and told me no. Oh, so I got to turn around now and go back over to the other guys. I said, I don't know what to tell you. They say they're not going to tag. I just asked them. They're standing on the apron, Jerry, and they're just having their own conversation. We got a wrestling match going on. So
they were enjoying the show, man. They were enjoying the show.
I walk over to them. I said, hey, do y'all understand that there's a match in the ring? Do y'all plan on joining this match at any time? No.
No.
It was a good match, Jerry. I mean, it was a good match.
It was a good match because they wasn't in it.
They wasn't in it.
Right.
Teddy, being a referee like that, in situations like that, I mean, you got to really, that's where a lot of people really don't give the referees a lot of credit. There's a lot of dysfunction going on in that ring at the same time, especially when you got somebody like Layfield and Simmons who are going to do what the hell they want to do. And you got three young studs over in the other corner jumping around, getting ready, want to be a star time. And here you are stuck in the middle trying to relay messages back and forth, and you walk over. No. What do you do, man?
Yeah, I just went right back and told those guys they're not getting in. They're not coming in. So I don't know what to tell y'all. Right.
One time we were in a match up in those tent cities. Remember we used to run those tent cities, Jerry, up in Massachusetts, Hyannis and down the Cape and stuff.
Cape Cod.
That's right. Yeah. Terry Taylor.
Foxworth and all that stuff, yeah.
Terry Taylor was the agent. He was kind of, I think, trying to need
Who?
Terry Taylor. You know who I'm talking about.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first time in like 6 months that name has ever been mentioned on this show. And probably be the last. You'll probably get sued for mentioning your name.
And I'm like, Terry Taylor, who?
So Taylor wants to kind of get to me and Ron a little bit, I think. So he says, how about we just beat you guys first? We're in some like 3-team or 4-team tag. And I said, I got an idea. You want to really pop the people? How about I come out and Gangrel DDTs me as I'm climbing through the ropes? And Terry goes, that's a great idea. Ron puts on not even his knee pads. He puts on his tights. He still got his watch on, no wristbands. He walks down the aisle, and all he got on is his tights and his boots not laced. Ron walks down the aisle. I stick my head through the ropes and get DDT'd. I rolled right back out. Ron and I left, and we're in the next town by the time the match was over.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, you brought up something, John, there. So, excuse me, Teddy, but John brought up something I've always been curious about. Ron Simmons wore a watch to the ring more than anybody I've ever known. I mean, we've all done it here and there. We've all forgotten to take off. But was that a gimmick with Ron? He just wanted to know what time it was, or he liked that watch, I guess.
Well, no, he wore that watch because he wanted to make sure him and John didn't put in too much time. That's exactly what that watch was.
I get it.
Yeah, because he look over at that watch and he tell John, well, hey, it's already 5 minutes in. I think we need to be going home now.
Hey Teddy, you first got started. I was watching some stuff with you and Kevin Sullivan. I think is on Hannibal TV or something. Really good interview, but I didn't realize that one of the reasons you got in the business because you were a DJ and you ended up DJing for Kevin Sullivan and Eddie Gilbert driving down the road, and they realized, hey, this guy's not only a smart guy, this guy can talk. But I want to ask you first about Alabama. You grew up in Alabama during the Bull Connor days, during the March to Selma with Dr. King.
Right.
What was that like growing up in Alabama? I mean, that was some of America's best and worst history combined during that time. What was that like in Alabama?
Well, it's pretty rough back there. One time, when they bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church and killed those little girls, well, I was like a block away from that. And that happened on the same day as my birthday, September the 15th. And I heard that bomb just as loud as it could. I mean, the car that I was in, it shook everything, had no idea what was going on, but I was a block away from that bombing. So that was pretty rough. And I mean, at the time, I was a disc jockey there at the WENN radio station in Birmingham. And one night we went to a little town called Leeds, Alabama. And what they used to have back in the day, it's like a meet and greet that we do now, that the disc jockeys would go to these little clubs and they would have things they call platter parties. And people would pay money to come in and dance. It's like it was like Soul Train, but we didn't even know nothing about Soul Train. So people would pay to come in and dance, and the DJ would supply the music, and plus they had a chance to see the DJ, a guy that's on radio, you never did see him. So we would go there, and have platter parties, and where the people could pay to come in and everything. So we would do that stuff. So that was good. And then, so finally, after I got in, one night we was coming back from this town in Leeds, Alabama. And I think that was the night that they had bombed the A.G. Gaston Motel. It was a motel there, and that motel was where Dr. King always stayed when he came to Birmingham. Well, they knew he was there, and they bombed that motel. And then we were on our way back into Birmingham, and we run right into all the rioting and all that stuff. And I mean, back then, people had big bricks in tubs. They would go get a big tub and they would put bricks and rocks in them so they could throw and break shit. So then they stopped us that night as we were coming back, and they pulled us out of the car. Police pulled me out of the car, put me in jail. They locked us all up, put us in jail that night for no reason, just because we were, in the riot. So they pulled all of us out of the car and we went to jail. And then they didn't let me out of jail the next day. They would wait. They held us in jail for 3 days. And that's what you could do back then. It was like a 72-hour observation to see if you was wanted or what. But they knew we weren't wanted. But they held us 3 days in jail before they would even let us out. And then they wouldn't let us out until the man at the radio station would come down and identify us and let them know that we did work at that radio station in Birmingham. And that's the only way we got out of jail.
Wow. So they never charged you with anything. They just
never charged us with anything. They just locked us up and put us in jail just for being out there.
What was as like John said, that was a dark age in our country's history, and traveling, I started working in the Carolinas in the 70s, guys like Luther Lindsay, who had been coming up through the 50s, when really dark ages, and Thunderbolt Patterson, tag team with those guys. I'd ride the road there in Carolina with them. It had to be so intimidating. You'd come into a town like, welcome to North Wilkesboro, home of the KKK. And you knew right then, this wasn't going to be a friendly night.
Well, and you talk about, Jerry, let me mention this too. You talk about Thunderbolt Patterson, and me, I'm just going to be straight up and tell the truth. Well, a lot of people thought that Thunderbolt Patterson, by him being the black guy, he would, kind of stand up for the black wrestlers. Well, that wasn't true. He didn't care about us either. He was all about himself, because one day that we had a meeting, it was me, Thunderbolt Patterson, and Ole Anderson. And Ole was the grand wizard. He would call you the N-word even if he knew your name. He didn't give a shit. So the next thing we did, we went and had this meeting. So Ole says to Thunderbolt, he says, hey, Thunderbolt, he says, how many niggas you think we need on the card? And Thunderbolt looked over at him and looked at me, and he told Ole, he said, well, boss, I'm going to be the only nigger on the card.
Wow.
That's a true story.
A true story. Wow.
Yeah.
During that time there in Alabama, Dr. King, you know, he had in Rosa Parks. What was the sentiment like for, say, in the black community, in the white community about Dr. King? I mean, he was doing incredible stuff, but you had this horrible person on the other side, Bull Connor, who was doing his terrible stuff on
Well,
one side.
well, if you want to know the truth, we got some Bull Connors right now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there's some Bull Connors out there right now. So, like I said, it was pretty bad. You know, you kind of knew, you know, your place in Birmingham, Alabama. You knew at a certain time after dark, you didn't want to be on the street. You didn't want that problem. So in Alabama, it was just like living. It was modern day slavery. So if you didn't know your place, then you would get locked up or get put in jail. I remember one time, John, I got stopped. I was about 18, 19 years old. I got stopped one night. They pulled me over and they put me upside the wall, shook me, and put my hands up. And the guy asked me, he said, "Why did you have your hands in your pocket?" And I said, "Because my hands were cold." And the police said to me, he said, "Well, what would you rather have, cold hands or a hole in your head?" Wow. I said, wow. And I swear to God, man, that's true. And I must have just like something from God, because I didn't answer. Just the words came out of my mouth. I said, "Cold hands," and they let me go.
And during that time, you also got to meet what I saw. I never heard this. Really, also have James Brown, right?
Well, by me being the disc jock on a radio station at that time, James Brown, you know, he was pretty hot. So James Brown came. I was working at WOKJ in WENN in Birmingham, and James Brown came to Birmingham for a concert, and I just happened to meet him there. So me and him start talking. So I would get in the car with James, and there was a club that James used to play in Birmingham. It was called The Last Chance. That was the name of the club. And I got in the car and rode with James to the club. He would let me ride with him and stuff. And so I rode to the club with him. And then me and him got to talking and got kind of tight. I even had a chance to meet his son before his son died. And James Brown started buying radio stations. And when he started buying radio stations, the next time I saw him was at WOKJ. I was in Jackson, Mississippi, and James Brown offered me a job at one of his radio stations in Augusta, Georgia. Well, I didn't take that job because I was doing all right in Mississippi. So I stayed there at WOKJ, and that's how I met James. But then after that, I had a chance to run into James again, and he had a TV show in Atlanta called Future Shock. It was like a dance show like Soul Train. And I saw James again, and he gave me a job as the music director. And what I did is select the music for the people to dance by. And it was at the old TBS studios is where they used to do it. And that's how I got involved with wrestling, because after James Brown would get through taping, then the guys would come in, bring the ring up and set up, you know, for WCW, for NWA wrestling. And so I started hanging around with that, going down to the TV station to watch the wrestling. And I run into Abdullah. And Abdullah had just come to town, and he didn't have nobody to show him around. And he wanted, you know, to find his way and go to the different clubs and stuff. He liked to party. So he would come and pick me up, and I would take him to clubs and stuff where he could hang out and party. And then on Saturday mornings, he would come and get me, and I would ride down to TBS to the studio with him. And that's how I was able to get in the back with the guys, because back then, you know, kayfabe meant something then. They didn't play about that back then. You didn't get back there if you didn't know nobody. Right. And so I started getting back to behind the scenes. I would go out to the ring and get jackets. I kind of made myself busy, you know, because I was standing around. Everybody's looking at me like, you know, what are you doing back here? So I started getting jackets, emptying garbage cans, you know, any little thing I could do to make myself busy. So they kind of left me alone after I started getting jackets. And then one day the position came open where they needed somebody to put the ring up and take the ring down. Well, Louise Manning was the promoter there, and she knew that I'd been hanging around, because everybody that got a job back then, it was in-house. Either you had to be smart or you had to know somebody, or you didn't get no job. So by me hanging around, they was trust me and everything. And so I got the job putting up the ring, taking the ring down. And then one night we had a show in Cobb Civic Center at Marietta. I took the ring, put the ring up, and by showtime, they had no referee. So Louise Manning sent out to the varsity, got me a referee shirt. They brought it back. She says, "Teddy Long, you're going to have to referee tonight." I said, "Well, I don't know anything about that. I can't." She said, "Oh, don't worry about it." Said, "The guys will talk to you. They'll take care of you." Well, the first two I had was Black Bart, Ron Bass in a Texas death match.
Oh, my God.
That was the first match I had, and they, brothers, started bleeding all over the place. They scared me so bad till I jumped out of the ring and left them.
You just walked the ring.
I jumped out and left him. Well, Charlie McGowan, God rest his soul, he was the right ringing the bell. Well, Charlie was screaming, "Come back here! Where are you going? Get back in the ring! Get back in the ring!" So I finally ended up getting back in the ring, and I could hear I heard Ron Bass tell Black Bart, says, "There's that stupid referee. He just left us. Now he's right back in here." I said, "God damn it! Did you see what he did?" And they were so busy talking about me. Then they started back to wrestling, and the way I escaped that is Charlie McGowan rang the bell too quick. He screwed up the finish, and they got so mad at him till they forgot about me.
I tagged with Black Bart. I love Bart, by the way.
Me too.
What
Me
a
too.
good
I
dude.
love him.
And he used to tell the referee, "He's pulling my hair. He's pulling my hair." The referee,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're saying. When did you meet? Did you meet Kevin Sullivan first or Dusty first?
I met Kevin Sullivan first. After I got the job refereeing, then I started, riding with. Well, I started riding with Tommy Young first, and then God knows I just had to get away from him, boy. I'm telling you,
Wow.
that was too much. So I ended up meeting Kevin and Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. And so after I met them and started hanging with them, so they said, "Come on, Kevin, come on, brother, you can ride with us." So I started riding with them, and we every night we leave the show, we'd get a case of beer. So one night we got the case of beer and we start drinking. And so I told him, I said, "Yeah, guys, I used to be a disc jockey on a radio station. So, Kevin, come on, brother, DJ for us." So I started turning the radio down, disc jockeying for them, and I thought that I was entertaining them, but they saw something else. They said, like, this guy can talk. So that's how I ended up getting in managing. They went back and they told Jim Ross, and I think Flair was in charge then, about I could talk. And it was something Flair didn't want to do. He hated it. But finally, I guess they convinced him to do it. And so that's how I started managing.
Why did Flair hate it? You ever find out why Flair didn't like it?
Well, he didn't like me.
A good answer.
That was why.
Did he not like you as a manager, or did he just not like you?
He just didn't like me, period. You know what? And I can tell you a true story. And Gary Hart, God rest his soul, Gary Hart looked out for me. Gary Hart knew that how Flair hated me. And Gary Hart made me a blade. This was my right hand to God. I have no reason to lie. He made a blade for me and he gave it to me. And he said to me, he said, "If he keeps on bothering you, said you take this blade and you cut his goddamn throat." Those were the words out of his mouth from Gary Hart.
I love Gary Hart. Gary Hart, you're right. Gary Hart stood up for so many guys. It was unbelievable back in those days. But Gary was so in tune, being that Chicago guy that he was. Gary just was a very caring soul, and he didn't like anybody taking advantage of anybody, no matter what position the guys were. He would stand up for the rights, and that's something that Gary Hart, he's so underplayed in a lot of categories. But Gary was a man's man. He was a friend to everybody.
And I tell you another guy that looked out for me too, God rest his soul, was Steve Dr. Dev Williams. He was another guy. He hated Flair. And he told me, he said, "If he keeps on bothering you," he said, "you let me know."
Wow. I've seen Gary Hart's blade before. It was he called it Sweet Lucy.
Yeah, well, he made one for me and he put it in like a little thing. I don't know what it was, but you could put the top on it and you never would know it was a blade in there. And you could take the top off and he had a blade, right? He made that and gave it to me.
Gary had it in the bottom of a cigarette dispenser, cigarette pack.
It's kind of, yeah.
Yep, he had that blade. It's Sweet Lucy, he called it. I never saw him use it. I heard him talk about it a couple of times because it was famous. And he had a promoter in San Antonio one time. It wasn't Joe Blanchard, it was somebody else. And he and Al Madrigal, the boys got stiffed. And Gary said he's going to have to visit with Sweet Lucy. Gary went in there, pulled that blade on him. And the guy ended up paying every one of the boys. Gary just didn't get his money for him and Al Madrigal. Gary was a good dude. Hey. Gary had money, got paid for all the boys that night. But he
Bradshaw, let me tell you, that same thing happened to me. We was in Birmingham, Alabama. It was me, Gary Hart. We did a show for Mike Jackson and some indie guy that was running. And when the show was over, the guy didn't want to pay us. And that's what Gary did. Gary got that blade and he went in there. And when he come out, the guy not only paid Gary, he paid everybody. Everybody got their money that night. It's that same thing happened with me that night in Bremen with Gary. Gary got all our money.
Yeah, Gary's one of the best guys there was, but he wouldn't take you sniffing the boys ever.
No, and one thing about Gary, he was so smart till he could walk out of that locker room and he could look around that arena and he could tell you in maybe 1 second how many people were in there, right off the top of his head.
I was so fortunate in the beginning of my career was in Australia, and Gary Hart was there at the same time I was there, and Jim Barnett, of course, loved Gary because Gary did so much for the business. You know, Gary was so bright in booking. Gary was so bright in finishes. Gary was so bright in picking out talent that could move up and you know, who to work with and everything. So Barnett just loved him. So I was a stone cold rookie there, and I was working to deal with Curtis Ikea, King Curtis, and so you know, of course, I barely knew what juice was, let alone how to get it. And so Barnett come up to me and said, hey, we want to do a big angle with you. They had an announcer, Lord Athol Layton or whatever his name was, and you're going to Layton's going to save you. Curtis is going to beat you up, and Lewin's going to jump in and join in, and then the announcer is going to jump in, which was Lord Layton, and we're going to come back in a tag team with you and Layton and Mark and King. And I said, great. I don't know how to. He said, go talk to Gary Hart. Now, this is Jim Barnett telling me that. Go talk to Gary Hart. So I go over to Gary. I said, Gary, they want me to get juice. I don't know how to make a blade. I don't want. He said, come here, kid. He walked over and he got Miss Lucy out of here, and he said, well, we can go this way or we can go a different way. And I saw that this way, and I said, let's go that other way. So finally, he made me one that was, you know, just junior of the one that he normally uses. So Barnett comes to me, he said, have you got a blade? And he, yeah, let me see it. And I said, well, Gary made it for me. And he just turned around and took off walking. About 2 minutes later, Barnett came back to me and he said, well, I can't have you doing that. He said, TV station won't let me get by with getting color on live TV. So Gary saved me from my first blade job by just the reputation of it.
And Bradshaw, let me say this, and I've told Jerry this before, but John, you may not know this, but when I first started in WWF, when I first got there, and I never will forget, and I also told Jerry, and God knows I love him to death today for this, he pulled me to the side and he told me, he said, Teddy Long, he said, the old man likes you. He loves you. Said, don't fuck this up. Okay. And I said, don't you worry. And I never will forget that, because every time I'd always think what Jerry told me. I said, oh shit, I can't fuck this up. Let me do the right thing. But I always thought about that. And I think that's what kept me there, my longevity.
Well, that's it. He loved your versatility. He loved your hustle, and he loved your ambition for the business, and that more than anything else. But Teddy, you came with the reputation. So I just wanted to tell you as a brother, Teddy, you got an opportunity of the world, man. Just don't fuck it up.
And I never did. I never forgot that either. And
I remember you thanking me over and over again every time you get that paycheck, you'd come with a big old grand to thank you, Mr. Brisco. But you and I used to have some really good talks about the world, not just the business, but how to handle yourself in that culture, and
right.
Man, you were a fast learner, Teddy.
Well, I knew I had to learn. If I didn't, I wasn't gonna make
it. Teddy, come on, making it. When that match you had where you turned heel as a referee, going way back, the first time you got really big heat, and it was because of Kevin Sullivan sticking up for you, wanting you to do it, and turn you as a heel manager. You turned on the Road Warriors, who just didn't get beat back then in New Orleans, and you
yes.
were the hottest heel freaking in the South. Did you know at the time how big that was going to end up becoming?
No, not at all. I did. To be honest with you, I had not a clue what I was even doing. Okay.
You end up hitting the fast count on the Road Warriors, and you.
Well, yeah, I did the fast 1, 2, 3, but everything is done for a reason, and everything now is about business. I had no idea what I was doing was for a reason. I had no idea what I was doing. It was about business because nobody would tell me nothing. I had to learn everything on my own. So as I continued to stay, I started to learn. I learned more. I'm like, oh, I got it now. I'll tell you another thing too. When I first started refereeing, Dusty Rose, me and Dusty got along. Dusty gave me my first job, God rest his soul. Well, Dusty would come and get me, and he would bring me into the production meetings. Or either I would go get a bunch of coffee and tea for the guys to drink. And so when I would bring that tray in the production meeting for everybody to the coffee, Dusty would make me stay in there. He said, no, you stand right over there. Stand over there, baby. So I'm like, why am I standing in here? And I'm scared to death, okay? Because I don't know what reason I'm in there and they're talking all this stuff that I know I ain't supposed to hear. So I never did put that together. So finally, as I stayed around and I learned, then it hit me. I said, now I got this. I know, understand why Dusty brought me in here so I could learn. But they never told me. But I picked up on it because I started to, I said, I got this. Dusty told me this. He made me learn this. So that's how I come to learn on my own.
Jerry, you'll acknowledge this. That was an old school way of learning. I kind of broke in that way too. The guys would take you under the wing, but they wouldn't sit you down and say, okay, here's the business and explain it to you. They would let you listen to the business and learn that way, which is what Dusty was doing, which is an awesome story.
And I had no idea what he was doing. But as I continued to work in the business, it would all come back to me. I'm like, God, thank you, Dusty. I got this now. I understand what you were doing. I got it.
That's the big thing about our business. And I think that's the reason, a lot of the old timers were so thorough and so protective of the business is because nobody got in the easy way. I mean, nobody. I don't care if you're, your dad or your brother, your uncle, your mother, or who. Nobody really got in the easy way. You might have got in the business the easy way, but you didn't get in that dressing room atmosphere, that fraternity the easy way. You had to learn your way in there, and nobody was offering advice to you unless you were a good guy and you showed that potential of doing it. And each time that you help somebody like Dusty looked at you and he probably listened to you, probably observed you for several weeks and saw your ambition and your lust for the business there. Hey, this guy would make me a good guy to be on my side. And they teach you those little things, and they're so subtle the way they do it. And there was a reason for that being so subtle, because down the line, all of a sudden you're in this position and you recall what those guys have told you, but it wasn't an easy job for anybody to get into business, let alone a referee or a manager or a mouthpiece. Those people were kind of looked at. They weren't even into business at that time. They were just props.
Yep, exactly.
One thing you talk about being hard in the business. I saw an interview with Kevin Sullivan. It was with you, Teddy, and he was talking about, I guess, Hiro Matsuda training Ron. I think I've got that right. Matsuda was trained by Carl Gotch about how hard it was breaking guys in the business, and they just tortured guys back then. Thank God Brad Ryan gets worked us very hard, but not like that. And he said Ron Simmons was the only guy that wouldn't tap out to the training. Said he would do the 500 squats, he'd do the 200 push-ups, whatever it was, he'd do all stuff. And Kevin Sullivan said, we go down there and watch, we go, this guy's a man, a freaking man.
Yeah.
John, at that time, Ron was breaking in, and Ron always said, Ron was, the ball player in the state of Florida. So there was a sports editor by the name of Tom McEwen here in town that actually got Paul Orndorff in the business too, along with Lex and a couple other football players that we had no way of getting in touch with, but Tom being the sports editor of a major newspaper here, but he told Eddie about Ron Simmons. So of course, the first thing they do is take him down to Matsuda's place, and Matsuda's gym was actually a block and a half away from the body shop. Sometimes we'd be out there and all that noise, the hammering and grinding and all that. You'd hear guys screaming and hollering from that block and a half away. I'd look over at Jack and Hero's busy again. So I'd walk over there and I'd see Ron and guys, but Ron would be in there and all these guys bending over, huffing and puffing and hurting, moaning and groaning. Ron was shaking it off like, come on, what's next? I've never seen a guy take to the business like Ron did. And but Ron wasn't, Hero was smart. He didn't abuse people that he knew that could kick his ass. So he knew Ron would kick his ass at any moment, at any time. So Hero kind of backed off on him. But boy, like guys like Luger and those guys like that, he punished those guys. Even Hogan, and Hogan.
Right.
But yeah, Matsuda was phenomenal, but there were no pushing around Ron Simmons at that time.
Right. Well, like you said, he's the man.
He is the man. The term unfuckwithable came about because
I love that. That's greatest quote in the business right there.
When did you first meet Ron, Teddy?
When he first came from Florida and they brought him into NWA, I was refereeing then, and I first met him right there when he come up from Florida.
And what was the idea of putting? I know you had the Skyscrapers first. You had the Undertaker. You had Dan Spivey, Sid Vicious, or Sid Justice, whatever you want to call him. Then you had Doom. What was the idea of putting Butch and Ron together?
Well, the whole thing was Nancy Benoit, God rest her soul. She was managing Butch and Ron, and they had the mask on, and they called them. They wasn't Doom. It was the Ebony Express or something like that. I think that was the name. Well, anyway, after Nancy started managing them, and then when Kevin and those guys found out that I could talk and everything, and they decided to put me in the manager's role, then that's how I ended up with them. So I come out and I got them from Nancy, and then when I got them, then they was already, Butch Reed was already aligned with Ron, and so when I got them, we took the hoods off of them, and then that's when we started calling them Doom. But that's how I ended up with them, because they took them from Nancy Benoit, and then I started managing them.
That, to me, was one of the greatest teams of all time. And you had the Road Warriors in that era who lasted a really long time, who were just as popular as they could be. But then you had these guys, the first guys that could match up with the Road Warriors and maybe even outmatch them.
Yeah.
You had from October of, I think it's 89 to March of 91. That was Doom's run. It was only about a year and a half. They were such a great team. Why did it not go longer?
Well, I don't know. Well, this is another story. You know what I mean? And like I said, I don't know. But I remember one night we was in St. Louis, Missouri, and Jim Hurd was the guy that was in charge. And what happened there, when we got there, I guess that Butch and Ron was doing so good, as a tag team, you know what I mean? Had all the heat and everything, till they decided to break them up. Okay, now why they wanted to do that, I don't know. But when we get to St. Louis, and Ron will tell you this story, we get to St. Louis, we get there, and Jim Hurd comes and tells us, he says, well, we're going to break, Flair wants to break you guys up. Said, we're going to have you guys wrestle Flair. And Flair was supposed to wrestle that night for the world title against Sting. And Sting wouldn't drop the belt to him. So he got pissed off because Sting wouldn't drop the belt, and then he said he was going to get somebody, and then he was going to take our stuff. So he got somebody to tag with him, then he was going to beat Butch and Ron, and we're going to take our belts that night for no reason at all. So Ron got up and said, no, we're not doing it. And when Ron said that, then I said, well, I'm with Ron, we're not doing it. So we got up and left. Butch Reed was the only person that didn't, go along with it. He stayed there, but I guess, that's old school. But after me and Ron didn't do it, then I think that's where I got my heat with Flair and probably some more. After I didn't want to do that.
And so that was the heat, probably with Doom, to not keep those guys together, because
right. They kept trying to break us. They kept trying to break us up for no reason, for no apparent reason whatsoever. There was no story, nothing to take the titles from us at all. They just wanted to take them.
No reason. I think the reason was those two guys were so damn intimidating that I think guys were actually afraid to go into the ring with them, even though they were both as professional as can be and two of the best performers ever, workers ever to step in the ring. But the look of those two guys, Doom, I mean, the name fit the bodies, the name fit the dispositions of these guys. Well, and brother, if there was a Doom looking at you, you were scared, man.
Well, I'll be straight up with you now. If you cause any problems in there, those guys would beat your ass. Now I'm gonna tell you that right now. I've seen that happen.
I've seen it happen too. I was wrong. I tell you, how much heat did you guys have during that time? How great was? I mean, that to me, there's a picture somewhere on the internet of you sitting there with those two guys. It is possibly the most intimidating picture. I've seen the pictures of the Road Warriors. No disrespect to Joe and Mike. Love those guys. that was the most intimidating picture I've ever seen of wrestlers anywhere. They were freaking awesome, especially awesome looking. How was that being out there with those guys?
Oh, it was absolutely great. And you know me, I'm just having a ball. You know, my little self, all I can do is talk and they would bag it up. You know, I talk all the shit and they bag it, they get right in the ring and bag it up. And I never will forget, one night we was in the Omni in Atlanta and we was coming back and this lady stopped us and she said, well, I don't like Butch Reed and Ron Simmons, but I love Teddy Long because he be talking that shit. So that's how it was back there. But everybody, you know, and I never will forget, Mr. Barnett told us one time, Mr. Barnett came to me and told me this. He said, Teddy Long, the only reason that we put the tag team belts on you guys is because the NAACP kept calling, wanting to know why we didn't have any black tag team champions. Now, that's a true story. That's how we end up getting the belt. Now, Mr. Barnett told me that.
I believe that too, Jim.
Yep.
Is it a true story that Butch Reed got my first night in the business in Dallas, Texas? I ended up going out with Butch Reed. That night lasted about 3 weeks.
Yeah, well.
Is it true Butch Reed rode a horse into a bar one time?
It was Rufus R. Jones's bar. Yeah, that's true. He went home and got a horse and came back with it, rode it all the way from his house back up and went right into Rufus's bar with it.
Why did he do that?
Who, you tell me?
Yeah, why, John, I could ask you the same question. Why'd you do that?
Yeah, you tell me why he done that. I have no idea.
Hey, how about the time you left Ron Simmons on the side of the road in Massachusetts in a snowstorm?
No, we you remember we was come from Rochester, New York. We worked there and we was on our way to Albany. And, and so, we drinking, so we done got the beer and we got it all in us. So, when you're drinking beer, you got to piss. So, everybody wanted to pee. So I finally pull over and, John, he's always on me. He never let up off me at all. Pull a car, what's wrong with you? Don't you see people got to piss? Pull it over. So everybody got out, so everybody pissed, and so I got out pissed, so I got back in. So I'm thinking everybody's in. So I got in, slammed the door, so I drove on off. Next thing I know, John looks over at me. What are you doing, idiot? I said, what are you talking about? I said, I'm going on to the town. You idiot. You just left Ron standing in the snow back there. I'm like, what? He's not in the truck? So now I got to bag up at least a mile on the median because I can't get off nowhere. So I had to bag up about a mile. So when I finally bag up and get back there to him, he's standing there and he's full of snow. And this is before the word damn ever come out. We bag up and I open the door and he looks at me and he says the same with damn Long, just like that. And that was before he even started saying damn.
It was nighttime, Teddy, in your defense, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you missed the biggest person in the car.
Yeah.
and then John, you know him, he don't make it no better. Ron gets in the car, he's full of snow. Then John, now he's on me all night. Well, see, look what you did. Look what you did. Look at Ron. Look at him. You got him all covered. He just blamed it all. I can't say a word because I done left the man.
By the time we get back to him, Jerry, Ron's standing on the side of the road with one hand on his hip like this, and he's got snow built up on his hair and on his arm. He was so bad. And we pull back in there. Teddy says, now tell Ron I did not do that on purpose, which he didn't do. But when he drove off, I'm looking at Teddy. I thought he was going to pull up, a few feet or something. Then he just drove off, and I thought, well, that's not funny. Then I realized Teddy didn't know what he'd done. So when Ron gets in the car, I go, can you believe Teddy did that? He's been laughing at it.
Oh, he just straight up buried me immediately. Ron, can you believe what he just did? He drove off and left you purposely. Can you believe? Look at him.
Well, Teddy, I got to tell you, 9 out of 10 people that I know would have never had the balls to put that car in reverse and back up and pick up a Ron Simmons that you left in a snowstorm. Well, I mean, you're that 1 out of 10 people that would actually do that. So that shows you what kind of friend he is, and shows you what kind of person JBL is. you have the intestinal fortitude to back up getting. And then, of course, John puts it right on your shoulders,
Then he buries me. Just blamed it all on me. Kept on calling me an idiot.
Ron was so mad. Ron wouldn't say nothing. And Ron, Ron doesn't sell anything. And Ron nothing. Ron just sitting back there, didn't say nothing. I said, do you guys want to pull over and just settle this and fight? He goes, you shut up.
Yeah, he's keep on trying to get Ron to beat me up. I'm like, what are you doing? I didn't mean to do it. I didn't know he wasn't in the
truck. We got to the hotel. Teddy checks in as gone. And I said, can you believe Teddy left me?
You're still doing it, huh?
Oh yeah. He didn't let up. And then right on the TV the next day, told everybody. Yeah.
Well, you got me back by putting me one-on-one with the Undertaker about 50 different times.
Exactly, and that's all I could remember when I was saying one-on-one with the Undertaker. Yeah, I'm gonna get you. Now, how about this time? It's your time now.
Teddy, did you come up with that, or was that written for you, or did you just,
I came up with that on my own.
Yeah.
And the reason I'll tell you how I came up with that is because Vince told me at one time, he says, when you say the names, he said, people like the Undertaker, he said, I want you to put some emphasis on it, make that name mean something. And I always remembered what he told me. And so that's when I would do that one-on-one with the Undertaker, because I know that's what Vince wanted. And so that's how I did.
That's what he got. That's one of the most famous lines, catchphrases that ever in the history of our business is that right there.
Yeah.
People today, okay, player, I'm gonna put you with the Undertaker. You're going tag team with whoever.
And that was the other thing that I came up with about the tag team match. Did nobody write that either? I came up with the tag team match because tag team match meant something. You're going to be in a tag team match, because I always remember what Vince told me.
That's something that guys, that's kind of left in the cold now because everything is so scripted for them. Everything is just, there's very room for that creativity. But what made those days were so great, we were told, our guidelines, but we were also told what to emphasize, but we weren't told how to do it. We were just told with our natural instincts, and guys like you and John, other guys would go out there and come up with these things, these emphasis on phrases that would get over without, pushing anything.
Well, and to tell y'all the truth, the reason why I helped myself and come up with stuff, because I had seen Vince in action, and I did never want to go to one of those come to Jesus meetings with that man. So that's why I said, let me do whatever I'm supposed to do, because I do not want to go to Vince with no come to Jesus meeting, because I've seen it.
We had so much fun. Jerry, you were there. It was so much fun because I was the perfect antagonist for Teddy. I was the ultimate heel that Teddy was always sticking it to, and I would always bitch about Teddy. I'd be on my knees and begging, and Teddy would it to me. Oh, we had so much fun.
Yeah. During my research, that's one of the classic pictures I see. I think you're tied in a torn turnbuckle there or something, laid up, and then Teddy's down in your face. Layfield, now you're going to get the Undertaker. Yeah, I love that.
Well, the first thing I told him, I said, well, I got some good news and I got some bad news.
The bad part is JBL is so dumb that I'm talking about the character in the third person.
No, you're not.
Okay, maybe I'm not. So I would always fall for it. I got good news. Oh, good. Good. And then he said bad news. And I'd be on my knees just begging. The 6'6", 280-pound guy begging Teddy not to do it to me. Oh, we had so much fun.
And that made it work because see, the people saw you begging, and so they wanted me to give it to you. You know what I mean? I don't understand why we don't get that now. Why we don't have none of that now. I really don't understand it.
Yeah, and the thing was,
I don't either, Teddy. We just look at things and say, but even in those days when we were doing all that stuff, the people said, how are they doing that? It was just instinct. And I just think the instincts are slowly disappearing, and we're just slowly turning into whatever the public wants us to be, which is, not a bad thing, because it's selling, the product is selling so well. But it was so much fun to be creative. It was so much fun to just surprise a guy like JBL with a line, because but that was part of it, is you're trying to crack JBL up too. I mean, inside you want to break this guy. So
Yeah.
And the thing was, you got to understand, a lot of times today, and even then, certain guys, it's not just today, guys wanted to be cool. I didn't want to be cool. I wanted to be the heel. I wanted Teddy Long to be cool. I wanted everybody a face to be cool. I wanted to be the fool, the dumb guy that gets stuck with, I got some good news. Oh, great. And then I got some bad news. No.
Well, that made the character. That made people believe, because what we did was reality. That's really what's going on. That made them believe. It was great.
Jerry, we're in Fresno one time. Fresno or Bakersfield. I get the towns on.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're going to tell now.
So Teddy gets on the microphone. Every night we had the same thing, but we always did different verbiage. We just played, whatever happened. Teddy says, I will not, JBL, let you make fun of these people in Bakersfield. And people start looking around like, why would he say Bakersfield? And I said, Teddy, we're in Fresno. We're in Fresno. And Teddy can't hear me. So Teddy says it again. He goes, these people in Bakersfield, they're not. Finally, I grabbed the microphone for him. I said, well, they all look alike. It doesn't matter if it's Fresno or Bakersfield. Finally, they started booing me. Teddy forgot. We're in towns every single night. You know how it is, Jerry. Jerry had forgotten what town we were in.
But that's how we had fun. We improvised. We were given that freedom to improvise, and that's a fun part of the business. And I think people miss that fun part. And inside we're having so much fun, but we can't show it until we get backstage, and then we all just die laughing at each other.
Everybody now is too serious.
Yeah.
They don't want to have fun. They take it too serious. It's reality. It's what's going on in your everyday life. So you should enjoy it. They don't know how to enjoy it.
The first thing you're told in this business, is when you're having your match, hey, just slow down, get all that shit out of your mind, go out there and have fun. But how can you have fun now when you have so much just on your shoulders? And these guys have the world of the company on their shoulders when they're giving that mic or giving that 15 minutes in the ring. They have the weight of the company on their shoulders. So it's hard to go out there like we did and just have fun and relax, because there's so much weight and pressure on these guys nowadays.
Right. Well, I had a lot of pressure too, but it didn't
bother me. We all did, brother.
But it didn't bother me, because I knew what the boss wanted.
Well, so the man had come up to you and put his finger right between your eyes and told you what he wanted to do, and you were smart enough to know that, and you didn't need to be reminded every other night. What to do.
You know what he did to me one night, and you guys can test this. Vince loves to test you. So you know what he did to me one night? I got ready to walk out. They were playing my music, and I was ready to walk out, and he calls me. He says, come here. He says, what are you saying out there tonight? Now I'm thinking to myself, you know what I'm saying? I just gave you the paper. You read it, okay? So I told him all over, and he says, well, I don't want you to say that. Here's what I want you to say. So he changes up everything that I have remembered in my head. He told me to forget about all that, gave me something brand new, and then told me to go. So I'm walking down that ramp and I'm smiling, but in the inside, I'm trying to think, now, what did he just say? What did he just say? Because I know I can't mess this up. And I would remember just what he told me, but I knew that was my test, and I passed it.
Yeah. And that was your pressure. That was your pressure of the night. And that's every night. But it's so remarkable that we all made it through there with the craziness that was going on backstage with everybody. I mean, we were all crazy there.
You got to be crazy. You got to be crazy to want to do this.
Amen.
Hey, Teddy, I heard this on an interview, and I've heard you say it before in person. What was the first thing Vince said to you when you came out as a manager for the first time about how did I miss this?
Oh, I walked out with D'Lo Brown, and I cut this promo on Tommy Dreamer. And I come back, and Vince McMahon stopped me and looked at me, and he says, I can't believe I've had you right here under my nose all this time.
Wow.
That was his words. And I said to him, I said, well, there are a lot of people back there that knew, they just didn't tell you. And I walked away.
Teddy, you have so many memorable moments, but in your mind, what is your favorite, most memorable moment? And when did everything just all of a sudden, man, I got this?
Well, my favorite one was the night that Vince made me general manager of SmackDown. I didn't know anything about it. They kayfabed and didn't tell me nothing until 5 minutes before we got ready to walk out. And one of the writers came up to me and he says, "You know, you're going to be general manager tonight." I said, "No, I didn't know that. Nobody told me." And by this time, Vince is out there and he's waiting on me, and I walk out. And then when he did that for me, that was a memorable moment. But the real good one was the feud that I had with Undertaker when he had me in the coffin and all that stuff. Well, the night that I was rolling down in the coffin, I could hear the people. And I'm saying to myself in that coffin, I got him. I got him. I said, because they thought it was the Undertaker that was in the coffin. And they were just growing and growing. And I'm saying to myself, I can't wait till they open this and they're going to see it's not Undertaker, it's going to see it's me. And brother, when that happened, I was so thrilled, and that really made me get in gear. Then I went to work then, and that was one of my memorable moments, man. That I loved every minute of that.
That's when the gears shifted. That's when the gears shifted. You were all the way in the overdrive there.
Right, because I knew anytime you know that you got them, then you know what you're doing.
And what a feeling.
Yeah. Oh, what a feeling, man. Oh, it was great. But that feud with me and the Undertaker was great. I'll never will forget that.
Right. JBL and I talk a lot of times about that white heat, that silent heat there. And you were in some moments, I'm sure, where you just felt that white heat come on you, where everything just goes quiet, and you just all of a sudden your mind, listen to this, I got them, but what the hell do I do now?
Yeah. Well, but once you know you got them, it's easy to know what you can do next because you're in control.
Teddy, I know how much Vince loves you because there's a GIF, GIF, of me on the internet dancing. And how that came about was it was the time you returned to WWE. You'd been gone for a while or something, and all of a sudden you're the surprise announcement coming down. And, I knew you were coming, but I'd seen you backstage. But Vince gets in my ear. He goes, "Go dance with him." And because he loved your dance and he loved you. And so I get up and do this dance. It's Teddy Long. And that's the gift now on the internet. But it all came from Vince. When you come down, the big ad lib is get up and go dance with Teddy Long.
I'll tell you another good story too. One night I got ready to go out, and it was Taker down there. And so I was going to go down to do this promo with Taker. And so Vince tells me, he says, "When you get down there, we're going to play your music. You make Taker dance with you. Get him to dance with you." So I'm saying to myself, nah, I know this ain't going to happen. So I get down there to the ring, and so they play the music, and I look up at Taker, and I said, "It ain't me. It ain't me." I said, "Vince told me to get you to dance." He said, "I'm not fucking doing it." So I didn't nothing I could do, but Vince knew he wasn't going to do it. So Vince was just dying laughing when I come back, man. It was so fun. Yeah, he told me to get Taker to dance with me. And he take a look right at me. He said, "No, I know Vince told you. I'm not doing it."
Vince was on a mission for years to get Taker to break character. He used me. He used Booker T. He used you. He constantly
the Spinneroonies, all that stuff.
He said,
they're trying to get Taker to do a Spinneroonie. That night's a classic too,
So much fun. Teddy, tell us what you're doing now.
Well, I'm running a company in Texas. It's called SWE Fury. I'm there with some people I know Bradshaw, and I'm pretty sure Jerry knows James Beard.
Good
referee there in the Texas area for a long time. Tom Lance, he's one of the owners there. And we're doing really good. We're selling out. We're on the CW. We're in about 30 million homes.
You just brought my son in too, by the way.
Well, yeah, we brought him in, and he was at our last TV there we had in Irving, Texas, and done a great job. And we're looking forward to working with him a lot more because we got Charlie Haas. Charlie Haas is our world heavyweight champion. And my thing I thought would be great for Wes to come in and work with Charlie. You know what I mean? So Wes has done a good job. He first come in, so we just waiting, looking forward to working with him. But
he's so excited. He's so excited about you being there. I mean, you met him along the years, since he was a puppy there. And he said when he first got invited down there, he called me. He said, "Dad, I'm Teddy Long," and I said, "You don't need to say anything else." I said, I tell my brother hello for me. So he's so excited to be there. So, man, I wish you so much luck. And James Beard, yeah, I mean, that guy sitting up there above you there, right next to me, had a lot to do with JBL and teaching JBL some manners. If anybody could ever do it, James Baird can do it. So James
Well,
Baird really helped us out in controlling that Wild Texan guy.
right. Well, that's what I'm saying. James is a great guy, and Tom Lance, he's been, really an outstanding guy too, man. He's gave me, a lot of leadway and, let me, kind of, run things and don't bother me, kind of like my own boss. And also, we got Kevin Sullivan. Kevin is there. He's on our writing team, and plus he's doing color commentary. So we're just doing great, and we're just happy, to be doing what we're doing, because a lot of indie, organizations, they don't make it. And I'm not blowing my own horn, but since I went in and started working with those guys, I really turned things around, and they're happy, and I'm happy, and we just, trying to do what we do.
You're instant credibility in any company you're associated with, Teddy, and I mean that.
Yeah, and Teddy, I want to thank you for coming on the show, but most importantly, I want to thank you for years and years of friendship, man. I love you. You're my friend, and I am so honored that you came on the show. I'm honored about that, happy about that. I was very excited for you to come on, but more importantly, that you're my friend and going to be for life. So, man, thank you, my brother. I love you. Thank you for coming on our show tonight.
Hey, well, I thank you for having me. And before I go, John, I want to thank you for all the stuff that you're doing for all the people in Zimbabwe and all the, all those kids over there that, don't have food to eat, just don't have the necessities that we have here in the United States. And for you to take out your time and go over there and try to help those kids, and what you're doing in Memphis, Tennessee, too, you're doing a lot there. And so just for you to be able to give back, because there are so many people that are in your position that are able to give back, and they won't. And for you, I was surprised to see, when you started doing it, I'm like, Jesus, that is absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much for going back and not forgetting about people. Thank you. And thank you again for having me on the show. And just as soon as we get off here, I'll let you know where you can send my check.
Like I said, this for entertainment purposes only, Teddy.
Well, that's what we're saying on the air. Once this goes, I'm going to have a talk with him.
Teddy, in all seriousness, send that check to Brisco Brothers Body Shop. They'll pay you.
Oh.